Councilmember Weimer, do you have specifics, and Councilmember Mann, I'd ask the same, specifics on this ordinance that you don't feel are going to meet compliance issues, and could you offer amendments?
Well, they've already voted on their work session on the specific issues.
Right.
I don't know that I've heard from Councilmember Weimer on his concerns, but
He voted no on Smith Gardens. He voted no on Bulos.
Okay.
He voted no on Puller.
okay.
Because those were directly singled out
Right.
pretty much
By
by
the
the hearings
hearings
board. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt again.
Councilmember Mann?
But I would like those in as well. I just think they're going to be found out of compliance. But I just hold out hope that we could get them in, especially based on what Mr. Stahlheim said tonight. If we sat down and had a conversation, a settlement talk, that would be my goal.
Councilmember Brenner?
I'm going to bring this up again. Every time in my memory, and it's pretty darn good, that we appealed the hearings board to, we're not at the appeal stage yet, that we appealed the hearings board to Superior Court, we won. My concern is everybody, get in compliance. Compliance with what? Compliance with the Growth Management Act or compliance with a group? And that's what's got me really concerned, that we're even, and maybe some of you feel that way. I don't feel like we're out of compliance with the Growth Management Act. I have no doubt that the hearings board, they haven't given us, the only things they actually gave us were so laughable. I just can't even believe some of the things we've done, like downzone, the little island, Liza, that was all built out. Come on. This is getting kind of ridiculous. So I want to work with anybody, but I just feel like we have when's the deadline?
The 3rd.
The 3rd.
Of July, correct?
Well, I think we should submit our stuff and then see if we can work something out with them between now and the 3rd, and then we could ask for an extension if we want. But if we don't put in something, then all we're doing is delaying again, which costs people a lot of money too, including the taxpayers. So I think it's time.
Okay, is there any further comment on this item? Seeing none.
What's the motion? Is there a
The motion is to approve.
Okay.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Sam Crawford,
Yes.
Kathy Kershner,
Yes.
Bill Knutzen,
Yes.
Pete Kremen,
Yes.
Ken Man,
No.
Carl Weimer,
No.
Okay, that ordinance passes 5-2. Councilmembers Mann and Weimer opposed. Thank you all. And for all of you hardy souls who have waited for our open session, is there anybody here for the open session left? Okay. Thank you for waiting, John. During open session, audience members will have up to 3 minutes to address the council on any issue relevant to county business. Before beginning to comment, please state your name and topic of interest for the record. Please make sure to spell your name if it's anything other than Smith or Jones. You'll have, did I say 3 minutes? Yes, I did. Okay. Start with you, John.
Good evening. Good evening, members of council. Last time I saw your smiling faces was on MSNBC on a news program. They were covering a subject that we can't talk about in chambers tonight. But, in light of the recent media attention to this little corner of the world, I would urge council and citizens to cool the recent rhetorical flourishes, specifically referring to citizen litigants as domestic terrorists and these Holocaust comments during planning commission meetings during Passover. I mean, that's just very embarrassing and should never have been made. Now, I came here tonight to talk about the Growth Management Hearings Board hearing, which I attended last April. It was just upstairs. I was disappointed that only Councilmember Weimer chose to even come. The question of whether or not, the $50,000 you spent to litigate this was well done. I guess time will tell, but as a matter of fact, you lost. You lost. The most telling moment, I think, in the hearing was that when the county's attorney, Mr. Casilius, he argued that the recent Kittitas County decision, that's a Supreme Court decision from 2011, only applied to subdivisions. And at that time, you could see the raised eyebrows on the hearings board members and some people in the audience as well. Chet, you were there, thinking that this is a pretty weak argument. And in fact, it was. The hearings board, relied on that decision. The Kittitas decision basically extended the county's responsibility to provide for adequate water resources in quantity and quality for all rural areas and not just subdivisions. And I suggest that was the reason that the hearings board reached the conclusion as it did in the latest Whatcom County case. And I suggest that a higher court will reach the same conclusion. So, tonight you voted 5-2 not to fund additional monies to the Seattle firm, I think in the amount of $40,000 to $90,000 to pursue this case. I think that was a bad decision. You should not have done it, but you did
30
anyway.
seconds, please.
I would ask then tonight for County Executive Laus to veto the county's vote tonight on AB 2013422B. Just veto it. Not one more dime of taxpayer money to pursue this fool's errand. And given the comments tonight about possible reconciliation, what better way to provide a carrot to you and the litigants to get together than knowing you're not going to have any more taxpayer money to spend on this action? Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you in advance, Executive Laus.
David Stahlheim, still from Whatcom County, I think. So, just wanted to clarify a few things, just in response to your discussion, and thank you. It was a good discussion that you guys had. First off, Mr. Kremen talked about comments that I made as a planning director. I just want to be clear when I said that some of the strictest regulations had to do with shorelines and critical areas, and I still believe that. They do protect the environment in this county, and that was during a period of 2005 to 2008 or something like that when things were put in place. It has nothing to do with the comprehensive plan and development regulations of this county. And so at no point in time did I ever say that. I've worked as a planning director in the state of Washington since the Growth Management Act was passed. I've never seen weaker regulations for a county on land use regulations outside of those critical areas and protections. So, Barbara, any of those things weren't directed at you. They were directed at others. They know who said those comments in public settings. So that wasn't you. So I'm saying generally people know who made those comments, and I don't want to single anybody out. So, but I'll get you off the hook for that for right now, and hopefully in the future as well. One of the things I do want to say, though, is that you keep on talking about Superior Court issues and that you usually win. However, this case, the Gold Star case, if you remember, you won in Superior Court in 2005. You lost at the Court of Appeals and you lost at the Supreme Court. No, you lost at the Court of Appeals in 2007. It threw out the Superior Court decision. It's in your findings of the ordinance tonight. You can look at the whole history of that. And at the Supreme Court level, they threw it back and said you had to start over. And the same thing has happened on several cases there. The other things that are different that is going on right now is that we have built an incredible record and we have an incredible attorney, Gene Milius, representing us. And so we have better documentation and better ability to defend the case and the issues. When you look at the current case, and John Lesso just talked about it, it's all built on Supreme Court decisions. It's not Growth Management Hearings Board decisions. It's Supreme Court decisions all over these opinions. This is the highest court, and they are a political body. They're elected. The Supreme Court of the state of Washington is an elected political body that is interpreting the Growth Management Act and is saying that you have to do things differently. You need to read the whole body of the case and realize that that's happening. finally, Mr. Knutzen talked about kind of like an arbitration thing, mediation, and some kind of forced negotiation type of thing, some outcome type of thing. There's something to that. I like a little bit where you're going with that, is that there's an ability for both sides to have their case and that there's an outcome of that. So there might be some structure around things like that where each side presents their case. I love going to the hearings board because they actually listen.
Time.
They read our information, they listen. Look at the recent decision, the findings of fact. They listened to the evidence. And so I kind of liked where you're going with that. And I'd be welcome to talk about that.
Thank you, David. Next speaker, please come on up.
Once again, I want to commend County Council for making the wise choice of Ellen Baker Glacier. I want to commend Whatcom County again for making the wise choice earlier this evening to appeal this growth management hearings decision, final decision in order in regard to water resources. I do believe that the Growth Management Hearings Board was applying the wrong law. I feel that the watershed planning laws that apply are, in fact, the Watershed Planning Act and the Water Code itself and other important protections for water quality and habitat that already exist. The Growth Management Act is not the primary law that that counties should use, and these other processes do exist, and I think that it is a wise decision, and I'm sorry to disagree with my friend John Lesso and some others, but I do believe it's in the best interest of the public to do what you're doing. So thank you for that, and I just wanted to weigh in. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I had a number of, Peggy Upiano, Ferndale. I had a number of comments, that I wrote down during the course of listening to things this evening, but decided you guys didn't need to be dumped on anymore. I hate listening to the frustration up there. I feel sorry for you guys having to deal with the Growth Management Hearings Board. And, the problem with boards is they're not elected. They don't have to live with their own decisions. And surely we're not the only county that's dealing with this situation. Have you guys ever talked to elected representatives of other counties to find out how they cope? It bothers me, too, that they attack you guys for calling them terrorists, FutureWise does. I like to read... No, I've never heard that, but I heard that allegation made. And, recently I was reading comments in the Herald, I often do, on the articles that are in there, and I was really dismayed that the people who were in here telling you how brilliant and wonderful and wise you people were during the reconveyance hearing and what a wonderful thing that was to do have suddenly turned on their heels and are vilifying you and saying that you're not smart and not able to make decisions that are in the best interest of local people. And it bothers me that, you're being held to a certain standard of behavior in terms of name calling and those sorts of things, and yet they're not. That's all I wanted to say because it really bothered me. Thanks.
Thank you, Peggy. Next speaker, please.
Chris Halterman, Whatcom County. I just want to thank you guys for taking the vote. I agree with you, Barbara, that I do believe that you are living up to the intent of the Growth Management Act. I do not believe that the intent of the Growth Management Act was ever meant in the year 2013 to keep us at 1990 regulations and zoning, and that you're planning for a community to stay sustainable, relevant, economic, and diverse. And I thank you for doing what you're doing. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Lorraine Newman, Whatcom County. I just want to address your concerns about mediation. And I've written many a legal contract, and they all include mediation. as a possible way of solving differences before you bring in the lawyers. But when you're working with someone under a contractual arrangement, and every time they come to the table, they come with their lawyer, you're never going to be able to mediate because they've already taken that off the table. And it would be nice in a perfect world to think that we could sit down at tables and mediate, but some people come when they come with a predisposition of we have the best lawyer and we're always right. It's very difficult to make across-the-table agreements. And so I think you've probably gone where you need to go to get some resolution for all of us, and thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to us in open session? Seeing nobody, I will close the open session, and we will move on to our consent agenda. Councilmember Man.
Okay, hold on. Let me just turn the 700 pages backwards.
Councilmember Mann, did you get my note? I forgot to confirm that. Okay.
I did. Thank you, Mr. Crawford, who handled the duties in Finance Committee today. Consent agenda. Every item in the consent agenda, of which there were 14, passed 2-0 with a recommendation for approval and with committee member Mann absent. And I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes 6-0 with Councilmember Kremen out of the room. And let's move into, we've got a weird kind of lineup here, but we're going to go to other items from Natural Resources Committee. Councilmember, is that Weimer?
Yep. Yeah, we had a resolution accepting the Whatcom County agricultural land cover analysis and revisions of the rural land study areas. And that comes forward with a 3-0 recommendation for approval, and I so move.
All right, it's been moved for approval. Is there any further comment or discussion on that item? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes with a 5-0 vote. Councilmembers Kremen and Crawford out of the room. We've still got a quorum. We'll keep going.
Better hurry.
Okay, we're going to go back to the Finance and Administrative Services Committee, item number 2.
Item number 2 is, it was item number 1 when it was in committee, but now it's item number 2. So I'm going to be confused here. But item number 2 on this part of the agenda was amended in committee so that the threshold for professional services contracts was $20,000 and the bid contract was $50,000, and that had a 2-to-1 recommendation for approval in that format, and I would move approval. Now, I don't know, were we supposed to have a substitute item for that, or is it okay just to amend it on the fly?
I'm sorry, I was doing something I wasn't paying attention.
You weren't listening?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. We made changes to the ordinance as submitted by the executive in committee.
Okay. We don't have a substitute that I know of, so you would move the ordinance and then move the amendments.
So I move approval of the original ordinance.
I don't think it happened that way.
You don't think it happened that way?
No.
Yes,
Okay.
we did. We recommended it with an amendment, but I'll go ahead and you've moved it, so I'll go ahead and move to amend the
2-to-1 no.
executive. The executive would bring forward to the council any professional services bids. That number would change from $15,000 to $20,000. It would be left in there, and then the on bids, it would go from their proposal of $100,000 down to $50,000.
Right. And then we were going to get some more information from the executive, but I accept that as a friendly amendment, if I may, Madam Clerk.
About as clear as mud. The nice thing is our person doing minutes tonight was at the meeting, so she probably could read the motion that we made then, and I could make that same motion. I didn't do a very good job there.
Here.
The original proposal, just to fill everyone in, since this has gone a little bit confusing, was $100,000 threshold for professional service contracts and bid contracts. We changed it from $20,000 $20,000 for professional service and change it to $50,000 for bid contracts. That got approved 2-1 with a recommendation for approval. Now the executive is here before us because we did ask for some information or possible clarification on the $100,000 number, as I recall.
And before he speaks, let me clarify my motion. My motion is to change the proposed 3.08.100 council approval required, and this is on our page 72. So it will now read contracts for professional services exceeding $20,000 and bids exceeding $50,000, and all real property leases must be submitted to the county council for approval except when, and then it goes on. And that's the motion I'm making to change.
Executive Louse, do you want to comment?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this. Just as because we have people that are maybe interested in this and they weren't at the meeting today, the request came forward for 2 items to be changed to our purchasing system, which is Whatcom County Code 3.08. The first is to increase the threshold for the bid requirements from $10,000 to $25,000 for non-public work jobs and up to $40,000 for public works. And the secondary request to that is to authorize administrative executive authority to sign those contracts up to $100,000. As noted this morning, there were 119 purchasing related items on the agenda for 2012. The council passed 112 of those unanimously, and the other 7 were, I think 6 of the 7 were voted 5-2, and 1 of them was voted 4-1. So there's been a very strong supermajority on all of the bid requests that have come through. By changing these limits and these thresholds, it would reduce the amount of agenda items from 119. It would reduce it 65%. In other words, 77 of them would be coming off. Now, Councilmember Crawford did make an amendment to what the suggestion was, and thank you for allowing the bid thresholds to be increased to the state limits. That's a big positive for our departments in terms of process, because it takes a period of 6 weeks to process these things through. It will also give our local vendors more of an opportunity on our smaller projects to be engaged and to be involved with that, and hopefully give them more of an opportunity to have bids awarded for them. Information that was asked of me is the numbers of bids that would be possibly come off if we changed it to Councilmember Crawford's suggestion. And the sheet that I passed out to you, I'm sorry I didn't print it in color. Not a lot of money to do that with, but it's a 2-sided sheet. One side has services, and on the services side, if we would go to the 20,000 limit, 9 of them would come off, and if we would go to the 50,000 limit on the purchasing, 22 of them would come off.
No, that's not correct. Is the services starting with Gary Dolan at the top?
Services are Gary Golan, yes. So
you were proposing going up to $100,000.
No,
right?
but I'm speaking to what your amended motion is. Your amended motion, by going to $20,000 on professional services, these 9 items
would come off of what we currently exist.
Right.
I thought you were comparing to what you had proposed.
No, on what we're currently doing. And on purchasing, we would have 22 off. I still believe that in today's environment, working with the $170 million budget that we work with, based on what I would call reasonable limits associated with it, that $100,000 is a reasonable amount. Ultimately, that is what my request is, and I'd be very pleased if that was the passed. With that said, I would like to offer a compromise from where my original proposal was to where Councilmember Crawford's was, and that would be to double the amounts under 3.08100 Instead of making the professional services at 20, go to 30, and go to bids exceeding 35 is to raise that to 70. And what that would do is eliminate 20 of the services contracts and would eliminate 26 of the purchase contracts based on where we were in 2012. In 1979, the limits were 10,000. In 1992, they were 20,000. And in 1996, they were transferred to 35,000. They haven't changed in 17 years at this particular time. And we have a tremendous amount more contracts going through right now than what we had at that particular end of it. I'd like to work with the council. All contracts are posted online, but I think that this is a way that we can make Whatcom County government more efficient. And obviously, if you look at the track record over the last few years, is there hasn't been a problem with our purchasing policy. We've abided with it well, and it's working well. So I'd ask for that consideration as a friendly change to what your amendment was this afternoon.
Okay, Councilmember Kremen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the executive for bringing this forward. I think your offering of a compromise is a prudent thing to do. I think it's, I hope that the rest of my colleagues find it acceptable. The reason I support what you're proposing is that the intent of the original or the previous prior limit was what the buying power was at the time. In 1996, $15,000 purchased X amount of services or goods. And today, actually, I would say it's probably somewhere around $40,000, and you're proposing 30, correct?
Yeah, I'm asking to double it from 15 to 30 on the professional services.
I think for that,
35 to 7 on the direct purchases of goods.
I think for that amount of time, taking into consideration cost of living and CPI increases, I think that is very reasonable, and it really stays within the intent of why we have these thresholds to begin with. So I'm going to support your second proposal.
Thank you.
You may have to make an amendment to amend to support that, because Executive Laus can't make a friendly amendment up here.
Okay. If Councilmember Crawford would let me offer that as a friendly amendment to his original amendment, he won't.
No, and let me explain. As I stated today, I believe there's merit in taking this incrementally. I believe there's little effort required. I don't want to characterize what effort the administration has gone to produce these numbers, because that probably was a little substantial for at least one or two staff members. But there's little effort required for the executive to bring this back to us, and I want to correct some perception that you have, Mr. Kremen. I just did an inflation calculator, and using the consumer price index, $15,000 in 1996 would, in 2012, so this is for last year, $21,671. I propose moving it from $15,000 to $20,000, and we would be just about on par with 1996. So I would suggest, and I appreciate the effort of because there's no question that the executive is doing this. There's no shenanigans being pulled here. He's doing this out of the best interest of running an efficient government, and I know, being the former executive, you completely get it and understand why this is probably in your mind a relatively harmless thing. I'm being a little selfish here. I very much benefit to having that, as Councilmember Brenner said earlier today, that check and balance review of these contracts, I'm willing to raise the bar a little bit, but we need it. And I think that, I suspect, I don't know this, but I suspect that of the $176,000 cost savings that was presented by the executive, a considerable portion, who knows how much, was that we were releasing the county staff from the bid requirements, which we did agree to today. And we're talking about council review, and I think part of it was that extra month that it pretty much takes for the council to go through this process of the council reviewing it. That adds time and labor to the staff. But I think it's one of those things that, other than the $176,000 cost, I'm going, a very fundamental basis of decision making I apply is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think the track record that the executive uses to say how effective things have worked has to do with council oversight. At the very least, if, like I said, it's nothing more than a selfish educational and informational basis, that we can do our jobs by going through this level of financial review. So my olive branch, I would not accept that as a friendly amendment. My olive branch back in return would be, I would certainly be open-minded if we're okay at this level, that we look at it in another year or whatever you think is appropriate, and consider another increase if we're really seeing that much added cost and effort that it takes for the council to review this stuff. But personally, it's something I value and feel is an important part of our job, and I'd like to do this incrementally if we do it at all.
Councilmember Brenner?
Well, I don't support any of it. I mean, yours is better than his. This has nothing to do with who I like and who I trust. That's the whole point. Our charter isn't about who we trust. It's about being the check and balance. And I think everything should come to us. But I'm certainly not going to support more things not coming to the council. This whole 6 weeks versus immediate, I believe very strongly that efficiency is important only to a point. What's more important to the public is the public trust. And the public trust created our charter as we are a check and a balance. I thought it was kind of, and I appreciate your comments, Councilmember Crawford. That's the reason why you shouldn't support changing it at all. But
I have not enjoyed agreeing with you so much today.
I know. But this is really scary because it's not like people will do things intentionally. Stuff happens. And if we don't even know it's happening, how do we know? How do we know? It's like if you don't even know the questions to ask because you haven't seen this stuff, you don't know anything. And little by little, this council in particular keeps, giving away more and more and more of our check and balance. And this is so important to me. I feel like we should get rid of the slush fund. I feel like we should, the public, every penny of that stuff is public money. It shouldn't be done just like a business. It should be done like a public benefit. And that's got to be the public knows what's going on. And I guess I'll end up by saying, do you think we got more public trust of government now than we had in 1996? I sure don't think so. I think there's less of it. So I think we're supposed to do this job.
Councilmember Crawford?
Yeah, I just another anecdote that you probably won't appreciate, Councilmember Kremen, but I ran 35,000, which was the limit for bids for 96, and guess what it was in 2012? $50,567. So my proposal follows almost precisely what the inflation factor has been, unless the internet lies, and I believe everything I read on the internet.
Yeah.
Because you read it on the internet.
If I may just make a comment. Councilmember Crawford, you are right. The big portion of this is raising the bid limits up to the state guidelines. And the the staff and I are going to be very appreciative of that, and members of the community are going to be the raising the executive level for the signator on it is a request, because it does cut 10 days off pretty much every item. And if it is the council's choice at that time, whatever limit you set and whatever changes you make are going to be fine. You aren't taking anything away from the administration. This is an increase in authority for it. So whatever happens, I know that the department heads, the elected leaders, are going to be appreciative of that, so that we can facilitate our jobs at a more expedient rate than what we're doing at this point. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody realizes here is that I'm not asking for anything other than trying to put things at reasonable limits that make our government efficient and responsive. And I'd ask that you decide amongst yourself what the appropriate limits are, and we're going to be appreciative and acceptive of that.
Councilmember Brenner?
Well, I guess I have to answer efficient and responsive to whom, because people, I've never run into anybody who didn't want to know more. I just keep running into people who say, you know, there's more that I'm depending on members of the public half the time to find things that I can't even find because they're buried so deep in budget stuff. And I think this is a big mistake. This whole thing that we're going to save $176,000 by doing it this way, that tells me we've got efficiency problems, but they're not in giving the executive branch more authority. They're in, why is it $176,000? That doesn't make sense to me, and I'd rather look for efficiencies in how they get stuff to us and how we get it back, you know, our decisions back to them, but not to eliminate it. I think it's extremely important.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, and I'm going to support Councilmember Crawford's motion, but I did just look up the charter, and the executive does have the power to sign all contracts. And the legislative branch has the power to set the budget. It's an interesting discussion we have here, but we also have an ordinance that we've put in place for our purchasing and power and how we go about doing that. So, I don't know, it looks like one of those places we've got ourselves into a charter, maybe disparity. Anyway, any further? Okay, I didn't mean to rile you up, Barbara.
I don't care.
Councilmember Brenner.
I don't think it's a disparity. We used to have annual budgets. Now we have biannual budgets. So the very least we should be doing is still getting this information. We keep giving more and more and more away. We used to meet every Tuesday. Now we meet every other Tuesday. And I didn't support either. I actually supported the annual budget for 1 year. They said it would be a test for 1 year. The biannual. It was awful. I mean, it was like we couldn't add stuff. We couldn't do this. We couldn't be as thorough with the budget. So it's just been picking away at our ability to be the check and balance. And budget is what, he does sign the contracts. But we are the ones who are supposed to okay them. That's the budget.
Okay, Councilmember Kremen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Brenner, if you'll recall, it was the people of Whatcom County that voted 68% to go to a biennial budget. It wasn't just something we did on our own. That had to go out to a vote of the people. And the people of this community, who you hold in such high regard and always say, well, let's go to the people and see what they want us to do. Well, that's what they want us to do, is have a biennial budget, because it's more efficient, it saves the taxpayers money, and it enables the administration to do a better job.
Councilmember Brenner.
Actually, we did vote on it, and it may have been that it was...
We voted to put it on the ballot.
Yeah. And we said that after 1 year, that if it wasn't after the first biennium, if it wasn't working out, we would reconsider it. But nobody did. I brought it up. I brought it back up to reconsider going back to an annual budget. Nobody would do it. I mean, I'm willing to try things. I've changed my mind. I've done all kinds of stuff and work with you on things. But what we just keep doing is making things so convenient that we're not, I just don't see us doing what's in the public good here. I know, and this isn't about inflation, by the way. This is about the check and balance thing, not inflation. So there.
This is about efficiency in government, and what the executive is trying to do is make his government, his administration, be more efficient. That's why he brought out the $176,000 figure, because I can tell you, sitting on from in his desk, I know how much administrative work it takes, how many hours, how many staff, and how much time it takes. And keep in mind that the state auditor audits Whatcom County government every single year, and it is highly scrutinized. And so don't think that it's not like the public doesn't, that things are being hidden, because you talk about scrutiny and government watchdogs, we have them all the time. So, and also keep in mind that the people of this county, when they enacted this government, they voted very consciously to have a part-time county council. We are part-time, and I don't see how you can expect a part-time county council to start delving into bills that are $500. It is ridiculous. And I've said my piece. Everyone knows how they're going to vote, and the time is late.
Councilmember Knutzen.
Well, I don't know how I'm going to vote. But, so, not everyone. I have some suggestions here. My problem has always been, you say how the budget's so open, there's nothing hidden in it. Well, every time we dwell into the budget, we find things that are hitting, whether it was premium pay or whether it was a $1.5 million transfer that nobody can explain how it happened, whether it was the boater safety fund that just disappeared and reappeared. So I'm willing to support this with the understanding that the money we're going to save we can use for this internal auditor position to give us some sort of
I support that.
Some sort of well, not so much assurance, just a resource that we can go to, so that things that have happened since I've been on the council don't reoccur, and that we have some way at budget time we have a tool that will give us some ability to go in and analyze some of this stuff. So I've said my piece, and like I said, I'm willing to support it with the understanding the money we save gets used to reinstate an internal auditor position.
If I may, to that suggestion, I of course, we're going to engage on the internal auditor's position. It's going to be very hard throughout all of Whatcom County government, the superior courts, prosecuting attorney, sheriff, auditor, assessor, treasurer, HR, administration, public works. Because these bids are so far spread out on it, it's not real dollars that we're going to be able to cut from each budget to move $172,000 into a pot. I just want to be clear that that's not going to be there. The discussion as it relates to the internal auditor is a good one. Within the auditor's office, there's about, I think, approximately half of an FTE's amount of money that's going to be available to it. And we'll have to make a decision, I think, as we decided through the 2014 budget review, to figure out whether or not we have the resources to be able to make that position happen, and whether we have a good job description articulated that will actually bring good value to the county. But we are working on that and looking forward to bringing that to you for your review later this year.
Okay, Councilmember Brenner.
This will be it. I'm going to refute what Councilmember Kremen said. They are not as thorough as you think, the state auditor. They did not find the 1.5 million. It sat there when they did their first audit before I found it by accident. I was the one that told them about it, and then they looked into it. So this is, and I've had that happen with other issues with the state auditors.
The $1.5 million, Ms. Brenner, was discussed.
I thought you were done.
I know you want the last word, but you know what?
Go ahead.
Councilmember Kremen?
I've got more energy.
I don't think so.
But you brought it up, and so I'm going to throw it in your face. The council discussed the $1.5 million. You just don't remember.
That is not true.
It is true.
That is not.
It's true, and I can get.
Find it in writing anywhere.
Dewey Dessler will corroborate that, and Brad Bennett will corroborate that. It was not only discussed once, but it was discussed twice, and also our Parks Department director will corroborate that. So 4 people say that the council did have this issue brought before them, and I stand by that. And so you brought it up, not me.
I'm fine.
Okay, so I just want to ask, I don't think we're going to get a resolution to this tonight.
He's not right. It's anything we do, any decision we make about the placement of monies is in the public record written. There was nothing written. There was the one thing that was written was that money was to go back into the Conservation Futures Fund, period. That's why the state auditor came up and said, you have to put it back or vote against it.
I'm going to call us back together and bring us back to the topic at hand.
I'll call for the question.
You have to move to end debate, and 5 people have to support it. So maybe since you're one of the people debating, I suspect we could probably go ahead and just get a vote going, and you don't have to do that.
All right. So will the clerk please call the roll?
Yeah, the amendment is to change the amounts to keep in the professional services contract and make that $20,000 from $15,000, and make the level of council review for bids instead of the current $35,000, $50,000.
All right.
So a clarifying question.
But it doesn't affect that we've raised the bid levels to the state.
But if one was to vote no on that amendment, it means you'd be sticking with the executive's
proposal.
original.
That's correct. Okay. To go to $100,000 for both.
So what you do is vote yes and then no.
No, what's before us is the proposal to go to $100,000.
Okay. All right. So we're clear. All those in favor of Councilmember Crawford's motion to amend, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, that passed. Is it 5-2?
Mm-hmm.
All right. With Councilmember Mann and Kremen opposed? And so we don't have to vote on the whole thing now. Yes, we do. Okay. And so now we'll vote on the amended version, and we will do that by roll call.
Barbara Brenner?
No.
Sam Crawford?
Yes.
Kathy Kershner?
Yes.
Bill Knutzen?
Yes.
Pete Kremen?
Yes.
Ken Man?
Yes.
Carl Weimer?
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-1 with Councilmember Brenner opposed.
Well, that went about as well as it did in finance.
Okay, item number 3. Which might be
yes, it's an ordinance amending Whatcom County Code 1.10, procedures for management and disposition of county-owned personal and real property. This comes forward with no recommendation because we did not have Exhibit A in committee. So Exhibit A is being submitted to us. Everyone can see that. So for the purposes of our discussion, I will move approval of this item with the Exhibit A.
And it's on a lavender.
Yep.
Okay, is there any discussion on this item?
Let's let everyone read it, perhaps.
Has everybody had a chance to read it? Okay. Any questions on the item or discussion? All right. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Barbara Brenner?
Yes.
Sam Crawford?
Yes.
Kathy Kershner?
Yes.
Bill Knutzen?
Yes.
Pete Kremen?
Yes.
Ken Man?
Yes.
Carl Weimer?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 7-0.
Next item is an ordinance amending ordinance number 2012-053, amendment number 1, establishing the Rural Road Safety Program Fund and establishing a project-based budget for the Rural Road Safety Program. This had a 2-0 recommendation for approval. I move approval.
Okay, is there any discussion on this item? All right. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Barbara Brenner?
Yes.
Sam Crawford?
Yes.
Kathy Kershner?
Yes.
Bill Knutzen?
Yes.
Pete Kremen?
Yes.
Ken Man?
Yes.
Carl Weimer?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 7-0. Item number.
Next item is an ordinance amending the 2013 Whatcom County budget, the 7th request in the amount of $1.569. There was, we voted to send this forward with no recommendation as well because we wanted to wait until after executive session today. So I will move approval of this item.
Okay, it's been moved for approval. And this was the one, because there were two of these.
Yeah, I'd like to move or amend that we remove the funding for the $40,000 for the additional legal assistance.
I don't know that that's in this one.
Yeah, it is. But
Is it?
It is.
It's right.
It's item number 2 in the.
Oh, item number 2.
supplemental.
Okay. Thank you.
In the supplemental.
Okay, so.
No, we didn't. So I think we might as well just have a vote on that amendment.
Okay.
I'll make it as a friendly amendment, but I won't accept it, so now we can vote on it, just so we can get that over with. Because I think we should vote on the whole package. Can I do
What
that?
the heck does that
Okay.
mean?
Okay, so I'm going to support this, and I'm going to predicate that by saying I support the $40,000. But I think if I understand the intent of Councilmember Mann, he would like to vote on items 1 through 3, or I'm sorry, items 1 and 3 through, and there was a lot of them, 3
Yeah.
through
I don't think we
18,
can
and
do it
support
that
those.
We can't
can't?
break it
Okay.
up.
No.
So it's all or nothing?
A second.
He can move to remove the $40,000. You vote on that. And if that passes, then you would be voting on an amended ordinance that would not have that included.
Oh, but we couldn't follow up with a vote on the 40,000.
No, that would have to be,
I see.
if
So
it's
all
removed,
or
it would have to
nothing.
come
So
back
I'm
as a
saying
separate.
I will,
Okay.
my original motion includes all of them, just because that was what was before us. Now I'm moving to remove item number 2, but I want to vote on that motion.
You
to
can,
amend.
yeah.
Even though it's my original motion, I still just want us to vote on it, right? Okay.
And once again, for clarity, now what I understand we're doing is the only reason we would vote in the affirmative for your amendment is if we didn't support paying the attorneys an additional $40,000.
Correct.
Because we won't have a second swipe at that if it gets removed. Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion on that item, on the motion to remove the $40,000? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, that fails 2-5. Councilmember Mann and Weimer in favor. So we have the full ordinance in front of us. Are there any other motions, amendments, or discussion? Seeing none. Roll call, please.
Barbara Brenner?
Yes.
Sam Crawford?
Yes.
Kathy Kershner?
Yes.
Bill Knutzen?
Yes.
Pete Kremen?
Yes.
Ken Man?
Yes.
Carl Weimer?
No.
Okay, that passes 6-1 with Councilmember Weimer opposed. And we have one more item.
I have a bunch
Councilmember
more
Mann?
items.
There's
Way more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Number
So the
6.
next one is for the council acting as the Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District Board of Supervisors. It's a resolution. Sorry?
Switch hat.
Switch hats, yes. A resolution amending the 2013 Whatcom County Flood Control budget. Third request in the amount of $211,682. This had a 2-0 recommendation for approval, and I move approval to the Board of Supervisors.
All right, is there any discussion on this item? Councilmember Knutzen.
Yeah, Councilmember Crawford was under the gun, so we went through all this stuff very rapidly this morning, and I neglected to get my question answered on this one, and there was some interfund transfers from the road fund, it looks like, and solid waste. I'm wondering where those are allocated, and shouldn't we have a line item in our somewhere else in our packet for those monies?
I'm not.
Okay, if you
sorry.
go page 131, it's for the Weimer 1 person that position.
So, Chris Brewski, Public Works. Yeah, so those, it's kind of difficult to explain, but essentially what that is that money from solid waste and road is included in this position to reflect the duties of this related to noxious weed, which is a road fund issue, and then solid waste. So those allocations are already contained in essentially my allocations. Since I would be doing less of that, those allocations are essentially switched between the two, if that makes sense. So that's not new money.
We should have something in our packets reflecting those amounts, shouldn't we?
Yeah, it says on page 130.
Yeah.
It says that's what it's for.
Where?
On page 130 under funding amount and source, it says the remaining 10% split is to reflect the other duties of this position related to that. And I guess my question is,
we get a credit on this one. They're crediting 3,362 and they're crediting 3,362, but that doesn't show where they've been subtracted from the road fund or solid waste. That's what
that's a reallocation within the existing budget authority is what that is.
And I still am unclear why that's not
coming out of it.
It's not new money out of solid waste or new money out of road. It's money that's already been allocated for those functions in the existing 2013 budget.
Well, this is a new position. How would it?
Right. So essentially the allocations, again, best way to put this is in practical terms of I personally will be working less on road. So my allocation to road would go down. This allocation to road would go up. That's where the money's coming from. So it's not new money into the budget. It's existing money that's already been budgeted. Transfer reallocation essentially.
So this would have been transferred into the public works flood?
No, it's being transferred into.
Well, yeah, it is. It's being transferred into flood.
Well, I can't answer the exact accounting mechanism. What happens there? If it's transferred into flood, then it's reimbursed back through the timesheet process, essentially, through the allocation that goes into the timesheets.
Okay.
I guess the point is, I'll just say it again, is it's not those two fundings, the road and the solid waste, are not new money. They're money that's already been budgeted for 13. They were just budgeted elsewhere, essentially.
They're just taken out of that account as partial pay.
Well, but that's why I'm wondering why it doesn't show that they've been taken out someplace on another.
Well, it says it right here.
Yeah.
And I think it did.
So, Councilmember Knutzen, do you have your question answered, or do you have
it's not a huge issue. It's just it shows a credit, and I don't see where else in the budget it shows the debit.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yes, it's almost. I know.
Councilmember Brenner?
It's almost like there's a page missing. I mean, I know what it means, but there's a page where it shows the money. There's a plus and there's a minus that has been taken out of it.
Usually.
Yeah, that page is
usually
in here.
there's 2 columns there.
It would show. This is going into the flood control.
Yeah.
So this is we're paying. It's just.
Don't we usually get a thing that shows that the money came out of somewhere and it went into somewhere? I don't see that specific, those things in the boxes.
Are you looking, there's an example on page 137. Is that what you're looking for,
That's a
Councilmember
different
Brenner?
ordinance.
I know it is, but is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
for reference?
Well, not 137, yes, yeah.
I'll take a look for it. I hear what you're saying, but that adjustment, obviously, when we're talking about the flood control zone district, excuse me, when we're talking about the flood control zone district budget adjustment, if there's another if the other side of it is going to be in solid waste and road fund, so
Right.
we have to go back to their supplemental and see if it's
And
in there.
just-
I'm not sure if it is. I'll take a look and see if I can find it.
Okay, I think there is one, or there should be one that does that. I know, yeah.